Sundays have always been sacred to me. It gives me a chance to spend time with my family, with my friends, to focus on my faith. And honestly, We Rest on Sundays is a platform that I've created to help you navigate the complexities of the world. I want to spend time having open, honest dialogue with mentors, friends and family, and individuals that I truly believe are exceptional. We're going to focus on love, career, marriage, parenting, and everything in between. And the primary goal here is for us to become the better versions of ourselves every single day. I want to thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on Sunday. Ray, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. I'd love to just kick it off with a real quick letter that I wrote for you and then transition into some interview questions if that's okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Ray, good afternoon. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best financial advisor and CPA I've ever worked with within my life. I've worked with many advisors and been referred to by many people over the years. However, it is without a doubt that you have been the best CPA and advisor who has helped us achieve our financial and personal goals. The level of detail you provide us with our quarterly and, in some seasons, monthly check-ins is the highest level of service that we could ask for. Your authenticity and care for the community only challenge me to be a better leader, father, husband, and friend. Thank you for never making me feel rushed, even when I call you cold sometimes to discuss a financial topic or an investment idea. Thank you for being a pioneer and leading the way in the financial space as well as the tax space. I genuinely look forward to our conversation today, and I pray that God will help show you other people consuming this content the importance of having a financial plan and striving to stick to it. Thank you again. Let's jump in.
Ben, thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
My pleasure. Awesome, man. So just a few statistics that I've read and would love just your initial thoughts revolving around it, and then to also hear a little bit more about who Ray is. But 40% of older Americans said that they're delaying retirement due to inflation. 1 in 12 Americans believe they'll never retire. The average age at which Americans start saving for retirement is roughly 31 years old. 56% of Americans say that they're behind on their savings rate for retirement. 32% of working age Americans have never saved anything towards retirement. And 43% of Americans are worried about outliving their savings and investments. So those statistics are very alarming to me. I guess, does any of that, what are your initial thoughts, and does any of that surprise you from what you've seen and, by working with clients?
No, none of it really surprises me. I think that there are a couple of things that are going on. One, when you first start out working in your career, you spend a whole lot of time accumulating things. You need to try to establish a home, you accumulate for home furnishings, you're buying a car, you're starting a family. And those become like your financial priorities. Rightly or wrongly, they just do. You're trying to build your nest for the rest of your life. And so those things are very expensive. And so what a lot of times people will do, they have the intention of saving, but they let these other things that they're trying to do to accumulate and maybe even get another degree and go back to school. So those are very expensive line items. So the most expensive time in our life is when we're really just getting started. And so then what happens is that we start to save, and then not really prepare. There's college education coming up, and we put all these other things ahead of the day that's going to come when we're no longer able to work for an income. And so those stats don't surprise me. Oftentimes people feel like they're never going to save enough, and so they just work and spend and enjoy their money. And then something happens that just kind of jolts them into action and saying, okay, I need to get real about it. Oftentimes it happens late in life. But even if you start late in life, you should start.
Yeah.
I have clients that really didn't start until their late 40s and 50s, and they've gone on to have a successful retirement. So the message I would deliver on those stats in general is that just start.
That's good, super helpful. Can you tell us more of just your background and again, a little bit more about your story and how you even got into the space?
Oh, well, how I got into it. So I'm a CPA by training. I'm a tax CPA. Went to FAMU. I spent my entire career here in Atlanta. I interned with a firm called Arthur Anderson in Tax back in 1989, a long time ago. And went right into the tax department. I worked with the group that did tax returns for the executives of the firm's audit clients. So at the time, Georgia Pacific was one of our largest clients. I worked on the tax return for the CEO and the executive team. It wasn't just me, it was a team of us, and we just kind of carved out a piece and we worked on those issues. So that's how I first got started into my training as a tax CPA. I spent some time in corporate finance after I left the firm. I got my CPA, left the firm, worked for GE Capital for a period of time. Then I worked for MCI WorldCom, telecom company that's no longer around. I was there for 9 years. And so then what happened, my coworkers and other people that I supported knew that I was a CPA, so they were kind of like, for holiday parties, they'll kind of hold me up against the wall and ask me for end of year tax questions. And so, and also my boss and my VP knew that I was investing in the market, so they would ask me about my advice. And so something happened when I was working for the company, telecom was changing drastically. Competition was being opened up. MCI was, an upstart competitor to AT&T. And so we were making a lot of money, and management and the executives were making a lot of money. And at that time, just even within my group, people just came to me and asked me for financial advice. So I started just kind of wondering, maybe could I do this? I wasn't really sure if I could give financial advice and get paid for it. And so I took a year, worked on my business plan, didn't decide going into it that that's what I was going to do. I just wanted to see if I could. And so it took me about a year to finish up that business plan. And when I was done, I said, yeah, I think I can make this work. And I had my wife was very supportive. And I just said, give me 3 years to see if I can make this work. I said, then if not, I'll go back and get a 9 to 5, because I'll have to, we'll be out of money by then. And so that was in 2001. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So been in private practice now for 23 years?
23 years, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So what common mistakes, in this next phase, I'm really thinking of like the 20s to 30s, age demographic, because for me, man, I remember starting my career. You mentioned Arthur Anderson, which transitioned into Accenture. That's where I started my career on the management consulting side, and it was this whole company match, and it's like I felt like at that time period that was the only thing I could really do towards my retirement. But that brings about my question. So, what are the common mistakes that you feel like you see people making, in regard to their saving strategy?
The most common mistake is saving what's left over. And it should be the reverse. It is setting a goal and determining how much you want to save, how much do you want to accumulate, by when. So establish a savings goal for you first. And the common saying, pay yourself first. Well, it's really save first and then structure your life around that, what's left over. So that does a couple of things. One, because the most important thing to a successful financial life really is just keeping your spending in check, living well beneath your means. So if you're carving out how much you're going to save off the top, now you're forced to live within what's left over, instead of saving what's left over. So that's common throughout the age brackets. It's just really putting that savings piece first and then living your life around that. And one more thing I'll add to that is that every year I got a raise, I increased how much I was putting into my savings plan, my 401k, or even, as I was self-employed, as I made more money, I carved out some of that increase and increased my savings. Again, that does two things. That accelerates how much I'm saving, and it's keeping my spending lifestyle in check.
Yeah.
So that I'm not spending every new dime that I make. Some
Yeah.
of it I'm saving, and some of it I'm enjoying. I mean, that's part of life. You know, you work hard, you want to enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, some of the things that you're working hard for. But
That's super helpful, and this is a good valid point, because I think, you know, lifestyle creep is very real. You know,
It's a good term, right.
at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
you know, you can. India and I, we talk about it all the time, where, you know, we both have good jobs, but at the end of the day, it's like we also put our daughter in private school this year, so it's like, oh, that's more than our mortgage, and all of these things, right? You know, but it's a good reminder. So for you, what percentage of income should people in their 20s really aim to be saving? Or should they not even look at it that way?
yeah, I'm reluctant to put a percentage on it because it's different for everyone. All I would say is, you know, your practice of at least saving until you get your employer match. That's a good start. But Ben, really what you should do is set a target. Like, you want to save X amount by some date, and set your savings goal towards that target. And you know what, your target may not be retirement when you're 20. Maybe it's to buy a house.
Yeah.
You know, that's what happened with my wife and I. We were both making a lot of money. You know, first year we got married, and I just started thinking about, you know, well, you know, we should get a house as soon as we can. And so, I mean, we ate out every night. We went to, we did something every weekend.
Yeah.
And then we found this house that we liked, and we didn't have anything saved for a down payment. So we cut all of that out for 12 months, and we were able to save for our down payment. And then we got our house a little after a year after our anniversary. I know it was like maybe right before our anniversary or right after. I think it was right before. It was right before our anniversary. So you can have intermediate savings goals, you know, along your way to retirement.
Yeah.
But establish the goals and have it that you're working towards something. And I think that will allow you to be more successful in terms of saving and achieving those goals.
Yeah, that's good. Super helpful. How should someone, like, really early in their career approach retirement savings? So whether it's 401k, Roth IRA, or both?
Good question. Oh, that's a great question for a lot of reasons. So when I first started, Roth IRAs didn't exist. And probably maybe 10 years after that, Roths were introduced, and you could only put in, you know, I think at that time like $3,000. And then subsequently, really just, I don't know, maybe the last 10 years, companies have become Roth 401ks at your employer without that $3,000, or now it's like $7,500 limit is not in place. You can save, you know, like if you're my age, you can save $30,000 into a Roth. Now, I would say save as much through your employer plan first and foremost. Max that out first. Now, because tax rates today, individual tax rates today, are as low as they have ever been in my adult life.
Wow.
They've never been lower. It's hard for me to imagine them getting much lower.
Wow.
So because of that, for those that are, you know, really like just getting started out, I would just max out that Roth 401k with your employer. There's no better way to save for retirement on a tax-free basis. You're gonna pay you're not gonna get to shelter those contributions from taxes today, so your tax rate today will be a little bit higher, but it's not gonna get any better.
Yeah, yep.
So I think 10, 15 years from now, individual tax rates will be a lot higher, and you'll have a nice bucket of tax-free money to pull from during retirement. Now, a nice compromise with that is to maybe take half your employer savings, put it in pre-tax, and then the other half put it in the Roth. And then when you retire, you have a bucket about the same, 2 buckets about the same, tax-free and tax-deferred money. But if I was just starting out today, I would max out the Roth 401k first. And then what I have left over, I would invest on my own in the market.
Got it. That's super helpful. And just to be super clear, you are not saying max out with the employee percentage only. You're saying the 22,500.
With the statutory limit, yes.
Got it. Which
yes.
is
it's 22.5
this year.
This year, right? Okay. And then if you're over 50, it's another 7,500.
Okay. Super helpful. How can young professionals balance saving for a house, paying for student loans, and then starting an emergency fund all at the same time?
All right, that's another good question. So I would say you want to save for an emergency fund first. And generally, I say just depending upon your own personal profile and what you're able to do, 6 to years worth of either if you're renting when you first come out, or if you have a home, your mortgage payment, let that be your emergency fund. That's just for life, because life is going to happen. You know, you may need a car repair. If you have a home, you may need some type of home repair. You may have a close relative that is in a bind and you want to be able to help. You know, all these different things. So life happens. So I would say do that first and foremost. That's going to allow you to sleep at night. You may lose your job. So if that's the case and you have a place to go in an event to help make you to the next, you know, over the bridge, if you will. So I would say establish an emergency fund first. And then secondly, it comes right back to what I started with, set some goals and priorities for yourself. What are the most important things to you? You know, for some people, it could be retirement. I have a client who is a doctor, has a really good income. It's like, people don't live long in my family. I'm going to enjoy my money. And so, and he does. And so he saves for big events. You know, he goes to Wimbledon. He travels. He'll go to an opera in Italy. Those are the things that are important to him. So, and he saves up for that. He makes sure he has enough money to really have a good time and enjoy his life. And I don't judge that at all. I mean, he's the one that's going out to make it. But it really starts, what are the most important things to you? And then, you know, set a plan to do that. Yeah,
that's good. Super helpful. And it sounds like he's living an exceptional life.
Yeah, he is.
But maybe someday, not today, for us at least, with these kids in school. But next I want to pivot to like the 30s and the 40s age group, which me and, you know, my peers and millennials really are in right now. And I will say is that I thought that 30s and 40s would be easier than my 20s, and it is tough. Happy, you know, grateful, blessed, all the things that we pray for, including kids and being married. But with that, marriage, kids, buying a house, like those are big, heavy, you know, line items that we are really just had to spend money on. But what are the most effective ways for parents to start saving for their children's education?
So to save for education, there's another savings vehicle that didn't exist for most of the time when I was a parent, and that's a 529 account. So 529s give you a double benefit in terms of, you know, you put whatever you're able to contribute to the 529 it's a really big number as to what you can put in initially. You can put in 6 figures, over $200,000 a lump sum, but then you kind of cap the rest of the way in terms of what you can contribute to it. But what happens, 529s are managed by the states. Every state has their own 529. Several states have more than one 529 that they can contribute to. Here in Georgia, it's Path to College 529 is the 529 plan. What you're able, I think the new cap is $8,000 per child per parent. So you could
per year.
Per year.
Yep, okay.
Right. Thank you. So you in India can do 32,000 for both kids. That's the most you can deduct from your Georgia taxable income number.
Got it.
So that money grows. So that reduces your Georgia tax. That money grows federally tax-free, and when you take it out, it continues to be tax-free, federally and with the state, to pay for college. The great thing about that 529 account is that even if you have like really smart kids like Tatum and she's going to get a full ride to wherever school she wants to go to, then that money can go to Ben. And then if Ben's going to end up being like his sister, then you can have that money and just keep it in the 529 for the grandkids. Some clients I have use that as like an education foundation for their family. So you don't lose it. You can always transfer the beneficiary of the funds to another relative, or it doesn't have to be a relative. It could be to anyone that you decide.
And
you can use it for scholarships.
That's super helpful to know, and it will continue to grow.
It will continue to grow, tax-free. Yeah.
Got it. Wow. Okay, that's amazing to know, and hopefully people are utilizing that as a good vehicle. As you mentioned.
Yeah, I really push that for families in your age bracket with kids. Yeah.
Helpful. How do family responsibilities like childcare, aging parents really impact saving strategies, and what should people do to stay on track?
So childcare is real, right? You know, it's expensive. That just becomes a part of your household budget, right? There's really not a savings vehicle that you can use, you know, for childcare. There's some tax benefits. You get a child tax credit if you qualify, if your income is low enough. So that helps defray the cost, but it doesn't cover the cost of childcare. It just becomes a part of your monthly budget. On the taking care of your parents, very similar. You know, if you have parents or a relative that needs your help, that's kind of where you may tap into your emergency fund for that. But a lot of that just really depends on how much you're willing to help. When it comes to a relative, whether or not they're gonna pay you back or not. My thing is, every family's different, particularly with families of color, people of color. We tend to have extended families that are in need, and those that have been successful are kind of called on, and they feel personally like they should do that and help. So it's just really different. I mean, you really have to, if it's important to you, then that just kind of becomes part of your household budget to be able to say, if something happens, I have a place to go help, a relative.
And maybe this is me trying to put you in the therapist box a little bit, but I will say, mid-30s right now, myself and my friends, right? Like, we are now in that age demographic and doing well enough in our careers where we are helping aging parents and extended family members as well. What's your advice, like, towards that? What should we be doing or thinking about or navigating in some of those more challenging situations where we may feel guilty about taking money from, the shared dual income pool that we have in our household or their emergency fund to help aging parent, cousin, whatever it may be? Like, how should we really be thinking through that right now?
Actually, I've talked to my therapist about that. So I was raised in a family where we, particularly like my grandmother just taught me at a young age, and I saw her, a woman that grew up on, her dad was a sharecropper, and they didn't have a lot. And other than family meant everything to my grandmother, and she passed that DNA down to her daughters, and her daughters passed that down to their kids. And so my grandmother's edict was, if you can't help, you should. And so I struggle with that a lot as I, start making more money, and I had cousins and other family members that weren't doing so well, and then they would ask, and so I would just hear my grandmother's voice saying, if you can, you should. Well, I have a really good friend who, I've kind of talked to about, a lot of things, and we were talking about this. He said, you should give out of your surplus, out of the saucer. If you have a cup and a saucer, what flows over into the saucer is what you really have to give. But what's in your cup is really for you. And that, because I was struggling with that, Ben, because, at the time, I had kids in college, and one of my goals I didn't want my kids to have student loans. So what they didn't have in scholarship, my wife and I paid for.
Yeah.
So, and because of that, my kids have been able to take jobs that initially, well, my daughter's a school teacher. That's what she really wanted to do. And so she can afford to do that and not struggle.
Yep.
She has no student loans. And so that was really important to me. So I was struggling like, man, I'm getting caught with, expensive college college expenses, then helping relatives. And I was really trying to struggle with that. So the short answer to that is, my advice is give out of the saucer, not out of the cup. Friends and family can borrow. You can't borrow for retirement. No one's going to lend you money for a lifestyle when you're 60 or 70, other than maybe, you have really good relationships with your kids and they take you in, but you don't want to be that burden to them, right?
Yeah.
So, so yes, it is really giving out of your surplus and not out of your need. And maybe that just kind of helps you frame like, well, is my cup the right size?
Yeah.
And so what do I need to do about that if helping family is really important? So there's not a right or wrong to that. It's just, but really, you have responsibilities to your family to meet their needs and not have those issues keep you up at night because you're busy helping someone else out of guilt. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have family. I'm not even saying that, that guilt is misplaced, but you still have your priorities too.
Yeah, that's good.
Those under your roof. Super,
super helpful as well. And you gave me a lot to think about, because I think, for me, I've always, I don't come from anything financially, right? Like my mom's highest grossing year was $19,000 raising 3 kids. So
wow,
it's very easy for me to look at my current life and see where we are currently at financially. And if somebody in the family needs help, like it is what it is. And I've had the mindset of, I'll earn more. And right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm not going to drive myself into debt or into a hole I'm definitely not co-signing for anybody for anything, but I just have always been under the impression of like, if they are asking, they need the help, and I believe more than enough in my capabilities to go and like earn more and to figure it out down the road. And I think recently, maybe because our expenses have just went up because of private school and everything else, my thought process has been challenged a little bit. So I appreciate you sharing that, and the thought process revolving around, is your cup the right size, is very, like, I'm gonna walk away and be thinking about that the rest of this weekend and probably the rest of this year, because I'm like, I don't know, but we'll see. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, because to your point, Ben, you're like, and because same thing, like I never feel like I've been blessed that I can make as much as I really want to. But when I'm working, what I'm not doing is spending time with my family. Yeah. So they're my cup, right? Yep. And so you have to really take that into consideration too. Like, what are these other things that, even if it's not financially, but if it's taking you away to meet some type of financial obligation, what is that? How does that flow back down and affect, your family?
Yeah, that's good. Really good, Ray. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Is it wise to prioritize savings over helping children financially, i.e. paying for college or weddings?
So, like I said earlier, kids can they can borrow for college. You can't borrow for retirement. I have clients, Ben, that are multimillionaires and they are not helping their kids. And and every time I talk to them, I'm like, nope, and we're not leaving anything either. Wow.
Go spend it all, huh?
Yeah, and they are.
Wow.
And so, or at least they're trying. I don't think they'll be able to spend all of it, but they're trying. But I don't judge that. That's just, those are their priorities. But I'm going to come back to, there's just certain things in life that only you are going to be able to meet financially. And that's really going to be your retirement. And that's really going to be like making sure that you have enough money to meet whatever life throws your way. So that's going to fall back on you. There's just certain things that you can't borrow for. It was important for me. I didn't want my kids to have that debt. I feel, good about that, but yeah, I mean, I could have put that money in the market and have more. And sometimes when they were in school and they weren't doing what they're supposed to do, I'm like, I got pretty vicious one time. One time my son went to private school, and when the tuition was due, I made him write the check out. I wanted him to know, man, these are real numbers. And so, but yeah, so I say there's just, every family's different. Like you in India will have to sit down and really think about what is important to you. Is it more important to you not to ever be dependent on them to take care of you?
Yeah.
And therefore you need to take care of yourself and make sure there's enough money there for the two of you to be fine during retirement. Or maybe like, I think we're going to be fine. I don't mind working longer. I don't mind working, up in age if it means that we can finance their college, or the majority of it, if not 100%. But everyone is different.
Yeah.
And I think it really just takes having some time between you and your partner and deciding what's important.
Yeah.
And then, holding each other accountable to that.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for that. Yeah. We're in a super volatile market, which I feel like we've been in for some time now, and then obviously we have a new president that's stepping into the office as well. How can people really protect their savings from a volatile market?
Yeah, this is going to be, things that people haven't heard before, and that is being diversified.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, what I see now, particularly with younger people, they want to invest in something that they think is going to go up really fast, go up a lot really quickly. It's almost like a lottery ticket, like they're trying to buy something that's going to really take off. And oftentimes I'll get clips from social media about a certain investment or, certain idea. Passive income is kind of really big now. But increasing wealth is a marathon. You have to be consistent, you have to run a steady pace, and you have to keep at it, and just keep at it, and keep at it. So being diversified for whatever happens, and just specifically about, the new administration, and let's just call it the next 4 years, is really hard to make a call on that, because a lot of things that, the president-elect says he's going to do, you don't really know if he's going to do those things.
Yep.
But if he does, then I think we're heading into a period where stocks will do well for 18 to 24 months. I think we've talked about this before, because they're going to loosen regulations. They're going to keep corporate taxes low, maybe cut them even a little bit more. So corporate profits are going to do well. But I think when you loosen regulations, I think you increase your risk for something falling off the tracks. We saw this back during the financial and housing crisis back in 2008. So that's going to be problematic if it filters its way through the economy. I think investing internationally will be risky. I think this administration will be hostile to foreign countries and foreign corporations. Countries will, if he goes blanket and do these tariffs the way that he talked about, those countries will have to respond like kind to protect their own economies. So then we're going to be in a period of protectionist trade, and that is very inflationary. So because of that, then during an inflationary period, you want to own hard assets, like real estate, commodities, gold. We've seen gold. Gold has been doing well all year, not just recently. It's been really the last 18 months. But commodities, hard assets, is the hedge against inflation. But so I think U.S. companies will do well for 18 to 24 months. After that, we have to kind of reassess and see what's happened. But I think throughout the whole period, if it's going to be a very protectionist environment with the tariffs, then you want to stay away from reduce your international exposure is a better way to put it, and focus on US-based companies.
That's helpful, super, super helpful. And yeah, these next 4 years are going to be fascinating, man. We'll see what transpires, and financially, and I think just with the overall economy, it will be interesting. But to your point, there are ways to still hedge against it and make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best financial position moving forward. Just two more quick questions for you, Ray. And again, I'm super, super appreciative of your time today. But what strategies do you recommend for managing healthcare expenses and long-term care expenses in retirement?
Man, yeah, these are really good questions, Ben. So healthcare is something that most people don't think about. There are I call they're health savings accounts that you have to have a high deductible health insurance plan in order to contribute to. I'm a big proponent of them, of HSAs and high deductible plans. Money that you put into that is triple tax benefit. You get it, it's excluded from your income, it grows tax-free, and you take it out tax-free for medical expenses. What's really nice about health savings accounts is that you can have them throughout your whole life. You don't have to spend any of the monies, now. You can and tap into the health savings accounts like 20 years later. So in other words, let's just say you're 70, and all along the time you've been spending money for your health care, but you haven't been going into the HSA to get the money. You've just been spending it out of your own pocket. You're letting that money invest and grow. Then you can come right back when you're 70 and say, hey, you know what? Back in 2024, I spent $10,000 for a hip replacement. You can take the money out of the HSA and repay yourself.
I had no idea.
Yeah, that's something that most people don't really know and talk about. So yeah, that money can stay there. As long as that expense occurred at the same time while you had that HSA in place, you can go into it at any time, any point in the future, and repay yourself. So it's sort of like, let that, again, my advice would be, let that money grow as long as you can afford it, and 20 years from now, you have a nice, big, tax-free bucket of money. For long-term care, I'm a big advocate of long-term care insurance. The sooner you get it, the cheaper it will be. 80% of us will need some type of assistance during our final 7 to 10 years. And that's what long-term care insurance will pay for. The older you get, the more expensive it will be. But I mean, I have a client, actually, someone that you referred to me. I recommended her to get a long-term care. She fully paid for it, and she's in her 30s, and now she doesn't have to worry about it the rest of her life. So she was able to get it at a really good price. And so, yes, I'm a big advocate for long-term care.
That's genius. Boy, did you blew my mind with that HSA. I had no idea about that. And that, again, like, that's a large part, a lot of stuff. You and I, we have this relationship, so we're able to talk, and I'm able to tap into you and ask these questions. But I'm praying, and I hope that anybody that observes this content takes some nuggets like that and applies it to their lives, because that's a heck of a saving strategy, that you can implement today if your company allows it.
Absolutely. So think about it. Part of what you're saving in your 401k most likely will be used for healthcare. When you're retired.
Yes.
So why not carve out some of that just for healthcare? What's in your 401k, if you contribute on a pre-tax basis, when you take it out to pay for healthcare, you're going to pay taxes on it. But what's in that HSA will be tax-free. So carve out some of your current savings for healthcare, because you're going to use it for that. And why not have it be tax-free?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you, Ray. Last quick question for you. What advice would you give to the generation coming behind you?
It's save and manage your lifestyle. And I would probably say that managing your lifestyle is even more important than saving.
Wow.
Because managing your lifestyle will be with you throughout your life. And if it doesn't cost that much for you to wake up and go back to bed, then you really don't have to have that much. It really gives you the freedom to do the things that you enjoy. But the more expensive it is for you to go through that routine, the more obligations you have for your money going out of your house and going somewhere else, it limits your ability to live the life that you really want to enjoy, perhaps. But it's an obligation, right? So I would say live your life such that it's well beneath what you're making, because you want to be able to have the ability to say, you know what, like, you know, when I started my business, I left a well-paying job. I had no clients, and I wasn't sure when I was going to get my first client. But because I had savings, I gave myself the buffer and the ability and the confidence to be able to go out there and do that. And you know, here I am, 23 years later. So it's lifestyle is the most important thing.
That's super helpful, Ray. And again, I couldn't be any more appreciative of your time and what you have meant for my family and my household. You give us the confidence to continue to push forward, to manage our kids. Lifestyle creep is very real, and I think we were big advocates talking about this whole private school decision, right? Like, education is just a non-negotiable in our household. It's very important to us. And we're, in my humble opinion, we're not zoned to the best school right now for our daughter's needs. So this is hopefully temporary for, first 2 years of her being in private school. And then, we'll figure out hopefully a public school route, because being able to make sure we don't want to be burdened on these kids. We don't want to be burdens on anybody, because we know what it can feel like. But hopefully the jewels and the nuggets that you share today, with us and whoever consumes the content, will be value add. So I just appreciate your support and your friendship, and you being our advisor and being so consistent and reliable for us. So thank you.
Ben, it's been my pleasure, man. I'm really humble. I'm so glad to have been in your life and India's life. I told you before, I see so much of the young Ray Payne in you, and just how motivated you are, and just you're constantly seeking knowledge and want to do better. And I just love working with you.
Likewise, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay.